The long-term consequences, people who multitask a lot have a harder time holding things in working memory. Brain activity goes down by, on average, 37%. Blood pressure goes up, heart rate goes up. It's harder for you to hold on to information, which means you're having to work harder, so you're more stressed. One of the strategies that was a game changer for me was to learn about binaural beats. And what's going to happen is you're going to hear two tones simultaneously in your two ears. Your brain will do a subtraction, so you only hear one sound. Scientists call it entrainment. Certain neurons will begin to fire in synchrony with whatever that wavelength is. And so 40 hertz for focus, that seems to be the brain waves that are associated with deep focus. BDNF stands for brain-derived neurotropic factor. It's like miracle grow for the brain. In the hippocampus, it can actually lead to neurogenesis, new neurons. If you're someone who's looking to improve your memory, you want to do aerobic exercise at least twice a week for about 40 minutes, about 50 to 70% of your maximum heart rate. The research was at a point where we could really help everyday people.
Welcome to the FitMind Podcast, where we bridge the worlds of science and contemplative practice. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Therese Huston, a cognitive scientist and the author of Sharp, Simple Strategies to Boost Your Brain Power at Any Age. In this episode, we dive into the myth of multitasking, practical neuroscience for focus, and simple techniques you can use right away to lower stress, strengthen attention, and spark new brain growth. It's a really grounded, science-backed conversation full of takeaways you can apply today. And without further ado, I give you Dr. Therese Huston. Therese, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Josh. It's such an honor to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you. To start with, I'd love to hear a little bit about your journey. What was it that drew you into the world of academic cognitive neuroscience for a broader audience?
Well, in some ways, I've wanted to write this book for about 30 years. When I was in graduate school, I was doing a cognitive science, cognitive psychology PhD, and I had to pick a thesis topic. And after taking this fabulous course in neuroscience, a seminar in neuroscience, I went into my PhD advisor. And it was an unscheduled meeting, and I went in, I said, "John, I figured out what I want to do my dissertation research on." And he doesn't even look away from his computer. He's just typing. And he's like, "Okay." And I said, I want to make neuroscience useful to people. And at this point, he finally pivots and looks at me and he says, "You mean for patients, right?" And I said, No, for everyday people. And then his eyes just slide back to his computer and he said, it's too soon, wait a decade. So this was in the early 90s. And sure enough, neuroscience was just in terms of at least the research was in the early stages of just making sure that the imaging technology was safe and how to do it properly. Anyway, it took until the early 2020s before I was satisfied that the research was at a point where we could really help everyday people. Neuroscience had been helping patients for decades, but in terms of really helping someone in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s live a better daily life, what would be practices that you could incorporate? Neuroscience was finally shedding a light on some things that practitioners and meditation had an intuition about for a long time, or people who did exercise, who were trainers, had intuitions about. Now neuroscience was confirming or clarifying what the best practices were in terms of brain health. And so I'm excited to be taking the juiciest bits of that information and turning it into a manual, kind of a manual for the brain, so that you can be healthy into your 60s, 70s, 80s, and make the most of your brain at any age.
So there's like a central theme, I guess, in your work that seems to be tackling this kind of like wellness overwhelm, this sheer like volume of advice that's available. And I find it can sometimes become sort of a stress itself. How do you approach like curating the science-backed strategies that are simple to fit into our everyday lives?
It really does capture it, right? Wellness overwhelm. For those of us who love podcasts like yours, I think I subscribe to at least 6 wellness podcasts at the moment, and then there are more that I'm trying to decide whether or not to subscribe to, and just trying to stay on top of them every week is intense. The approach that I took for Sharp when I was writing it was that I wanted to provide practices that, whenever possible, had a meta-analysis behind them. So a meta-analysis is something where, basically you're taking researchers have said there's enough research studies out there that we can take averages across the studies. And there are cases where there aren't meta-analyses, that something is either relatively novel or it just hasn't been studied very much, but I thought that there was enough research behind it or a clear enough explanation that it was worth pursuing and presenting to people. And so that was one of my criteria for including practices in the book. Another criteria that I had was I wanted to try it out myself. And if something seemed unrealistic or just something that I personally found too much of a stretch, I didn't include it. So, for instance, in the chapter on motivation, I talk a bit about cold water exposure, and there's so much enthusiasm now about, deep cold water plunges and taking a cold shower when you need to boost your motivation. And I think there is some good research on the benefits to acetylcholine on these things, and some evidence on dopamine. But I can't step away from my office desk at 3 p.m. and take a cold shower. If my motivation is flagging at that time of the day, which sometimes it is, that's not realistic. So there are people, maybe even the people who create these podcasts, who can realistically do that on a regular basis, but a lot of us can't. And so I really tried to work with practices that I thought, these are not, anyone can take a cold shower, but can you take a cold shower when you need one? That's the tricky part. And so I really tried to go for what's practical and usable, and not just in these specific circumstances, but that you could grab it and do it anytime or most anytime. And those are the kinds of strategies I was excited about.
Those are the kinds of strategies that I'm also excited about. So I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because there are some things about, improving your creativity by watching a funny video, right? With your phone, you can watch a funny video at any time. And right, there are just wonderful things that I tried to look for, ways that were practical, accessible, sometimes like doing you had Kristen Neff on recently. She offers a wonderful workshop with her colleagues on self-compassion training. That might be out of the budget for some people to take that kind of workshop, but it's one of the things I talk about in the book. But she also offers free resources. So I also looked for things where you could do it for free if budget is a constraint, which it is for most of us.
The FitMind app actually used to be paid, and then due to the kindness of our founder, is now free.
I
So
saw you're now an NGO, right? I heard that in one of your episodes. Yeah,
yeah,
congratulations.
thank you. Yeah, that's a whole other story I should share with you a bit later. But and it's difficult because, of course, we live in a world where we need money. So
Hmm.
there is also that. There's two levels to this. But I'm really glad that you said that. To dive into some of the core challenges that many of us face, being focus, we have to pride ourselves as being multitaskers. And your work suggests that this might be a myth. And actually, I can more recently, in particular, anecdotally, agree that I cannot multitask.
Can I ask, where are you tempted? When are you tempted to do it, or where do you find yourself tempted, or find yourself multitasking or trying to multitask? Can I ask?
That's a good question. So my main passion is the mind and mental well-being, health. My other job is programming, problem solving. So going between those two, there is a kind of gear shift between this and finding solutions to problems, design problems or development problems. And I'm still trying to figure out, and this is why I think your work will help me so much, just struggling to find a good rhythm or tempo of separation, really,
Mm-hmm.
because there is a blending of those two worlds currently for me.
I understand that, especially if, one pays the bills and the other is a passion. Maybe they're both passions for you, but, I know plenty of software engineers. I live in that world as well. And people have great side projects, and to keep the side projects on the side Not have them front and center can be tricky. Uh, do you mind? So I think there is a myth around multitasking. I will say there is research showing there are benefits. And so we should at least briefly talk about those before we get into the hazards of multitasking. So the benefits of multitasking, especially media multitasking. So media multitasking would be, for instance, uh, you're in a conversation with someone and you are on your phone at the same time, or you're toggling back and forth between a website and your website and your work, right? So that would be media multitasking. And what the research shows there is at work, it tends to improve people's moods if they media multitask. Particularly if you just got bad news that you're stressed about, to basically get a little distance from your work and watch that funny YouTube video, or to check whatever social media you like and like find out like, oh, someone's just announced their baby shower or something. Gives you a little distance to like, my life is bigger than the current crisis at work. So especially at work, it tends to improve our moods. And also people in everyday life away from work will use it to give them distance from something negative that's anxiety provoking in their experience. So you might have the experience at a family holiday where you find yourself on your phone, maybe more than you normally would when you're with other people, simply because you need a little distance from your family because they're making you anxious. So the research does indicate can lift your mood momentarily, and it can help you deal with something that's making you anxious in the moment. So those are the advantages. The disadvantages, though, are much longer term and much bigger. People think it makes them more productive, and it doesn't. And we can do a demonstration of that in just a moment. Uh, the long-term consequences, people who multitask a lot have a harder time. Research shows this again and again, have a harder time holding things in working memory. So they have a harder time when they learn someone's name, they forget it really quickly. Those would be people who multitask a lot, right? So if you're someone who's like that, you might take a quick insight look. Wait, do I multitask a lot? That could be that's you, right? It's making those moments at a party where you meet people harder, or at a meeting where you meet people harder. And it also makes it harder to do deep focus later. So you might be thinking, you know what, I'm just going to multitask this morning. I've got to go back and forth between my email and my work, email and my work. I'm just going to go back. But this afternoon, I'm going to give myself the luxury of 2 hours of deep focus. The research indicates it will be harder to do that deep focus this afternoon if you spend your morning multitasking back and forth between things. So you're making your life harder you're making it harder to be productive later, as well as harder to focus right now if you multitask. Could we do a demonstration? Because I think people often think, oh, but Therese, you might be bad at multitasking, but me, I'm good. So can we do a demonstration of how hard it is to multitask? Okay, great. And people can play along if they'd like to. You can do this while you're driving, or you don't have to, set everything aside to do this demonstration. And it's in the book, but it's fun to do out loud. So here's what I'm going to do, Josh. I'm going to ask you out loud as fast as possible. I want you to count from 1 to 7. Go.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Great. All right. And now I want you to say the alphabet out loud as fast as you can. A to G, go.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
Excellent. Good. So you were just single tasking, and I'll bet you could have counted faster than that. I think you're, trying to
Yeah.
be. Yeah, yeah. Do you want to do it again? Count out loud, 1 to 7, go.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
There we go. Yeah, I thought so. All right. So that was single tasking. You were doing one task at a time. You were focused on that, and then you did you single task with numbers, single task with letters. Now we're going to multitask. So what I want you to do is I want you to say a number and then a letter. So like 1A and keep going. Go.
1A, 2B, 3C, 4D, 5G, 6E. Is that what you meant?
That's what I meant. It quickly gets hard, doesn't it? Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you were to time yourself while you were doing this, most people are anywhere from 2 to 4 times slower when they are alternating back and forth, as opposed to than they would be if they just did the two things, all letters, all numbers, one after the other, right? If you just did all numbers, all letters, you alternating is 2 to 4 times slower. Some people even slower because they start making mistakes, right? So it gets much harder. And this is, you might be thinking, oh, Therese, but that's not really what I do, but it probably is. If you're trying to, for instance, compose an email or a Slack message in your kitchen and someone in your family, your partner, your child is talking to you or roommate simultaneously as you're trying to get that message out, you're oh no. Oh, I didn't know that. Wait, hold on. Let me okay. You're going back and forth, right? So you're toggling back and forth between the things. So we don't actually multitask in terms of doing two things at once. What the research is, and this was actually what my PhD research was on many years ago, is even if it's really fast, we're actually alternating back and forth. And there's always a cost. There's a cost in terms of time, and often there's a cost in terms of errors. The research on this indicates on average errors go up 47% when you multitask. So that's huge. So that you definitely don't want to be making those mistakes when you're typing that email to your boss or manager or professor, whoever it might be. And brain activity goes down by, on average, 37% for whatever the main task is. So you're not working as effectively as you would be if you just did the one task. And that's one of the reasons you make mistakes, is because that brain area isn't lighting up. It's not getting the resources it needs to do the task well. And blood pressure goes up. Heart rate goes up. I don't know if you felt that kind of a little bit of anxiety happening there. Yeah, I haven't seen research on cortisol going up, but blood pressure and heart rate do. So basically our body's having a sympathetic reaction, our sympathetic nervous system's being activated. So it's not good in many ways.
Interesting. So do you think that could be leading into kind of chronic stress potentially?
I do think so, especially when you think that it makes working memory becomes poorer when you multitask a lot, which means that it's harder for you to hold on to information, which means you're having to work harder to hold on to information, so you're more stressed. Your partner is telling you a story and you have to, like, wait, what did you say? Okay, now I have to work harder. I have to reconstruct. Wait, what did you say again? Or likewise with a team member at work, they're explaining how to do something that you've never done, and you find yourself thinking, oh, wait, I should be taking notes. I can't remember what you said. Right? So in the moment, it's more stressful. Long term, it's also more stressful because you are discovering you're not as focused. You can't do the deep work that you promised yourself. You gave yourself the time to do. And all of a sudden, that 2 hour window for deep work has disappeared and you didn't get anything done. So that's more stressful, right? So it does add stress, both in the moment and I think cumulative stress as well.
That's incredible. I think it could not actually be more applicable. You almost described my life.
Oh no, I'm so
Partic-
sorry. Well, so then the question becomes, how do you get out of it, right? Because people say, okay,
Right.
Therese, easier said than done. One of the things my husband and I now do for one another is, I especially do it with him. I'll say, 2 minutes. Give me 2 minutes to finish this, and then I'm all yours. And then I feel I have permission to go. And sometimes at the end of 2 minutes, he'll say, or 3 minutes, he'll say, are you with me? And I'm like, nope, I'm sorry. It turned into 5, but I promise. And then at 5, I close the laptop, set it aside. And he tries to do the same with me. So letting the other person know, you can even say, hey, I'm trying to get better at single tasking. I promise I want to give you my full attention when I'm done with this. So, and letting other people know you're working to get better at this. The other thing that I find with work that is a really powerful technique, I will often set a timer on my phone for 20 minutes to go off. And in that 20 minutes, I can't check email. I can't check my phone. I can't do anything other than the task I've told myself I'm going to do for that 20 minutes. And often when the alarm goes off, I'm surprised by it. I like, oh, wow, I was deep into that. By giving yourself that permission and by saying I'm not doing anything else for this 20 minutes, it really can open up a window of focus. We can also talk about some other focus techniques in the book, but those are two things to do interpersonally as well as with your own work pacing. I know a number of people who will put signs on their doors, doing deep work for an hour, come back at 1 or something like that, right? And that and you can do it with your manager. You can say, hey, I really want to make sure I'm focused on this task and don't make any mistakes. Can I hold off on Slack messages or whatever the medium might be with your team? okay if I don't respond to anything for the next hour. And usually your manager will say, oh, goodness, please do what you need to.
Yeah, absolutely. There is a great irony of just being overly connected to, say,
Mm-hmm.
like a manager versus them wanting you to get the work done, you being able to get the work done, and you being available. It's just,
Oh, wow.
yeah,
Yeah,
it is a fine balance,
it
and
is.
I think that's really, really, really useful. Thank you so much for listening so far. I just wanted to take a quick moment to jump in and give you an update from the FitMind team. So we recently launched an incredible new course, which is free in the app, which is the preferred approach, and also on YouTube. It's called 30 Days of Meditation, Science, and Bliss. And this has combined what we feel is the most effective contemplative practices with what we feel is the most important of the science. Honestly, I can't believe the course is free. It's genuinely incredible and has changed my life. Also, FitMind recently transitioned to an NGO. So if there is any way that you can help us at all, we now survive entirely off donations. And even if you can't afford to help out financially, if you could just give us a like or share this podcast or the course with anyone that it might help. Our goal here is simply just to help as many people as we can. We thank you so much. Now, back to the episode. What else would you recommend for doing that? Like, could we use maybe physical timers, or
I do find that
something like?
I find that physical timers help. One of the strategies that was a game changer for me early on in the research of this book was to learn about binaural beats. Have you talked about binaural beats on the show before?
A little bit. I'd
A
love
little
to
bit.
dive more into it though.
Great. So there are binaural beats. So the idea behind binaural beats is you would put in your AirPods, you put on your headphones. You wouldn't do this with ambient sound. And what you would do is after you've got your headphones on, let's say, you just type in your browser binaural beats, and you want to ask for 40 hertz, 40 Hz for hertz, or you can type out hertz, Hertz. And that will bring up on YouTube a number of different video recordings. So you want the audio, the video is not important. And what's going to happen is you're going to hear two tones simultaneously in your two ears. It sounds like a cacophony when I describe it, but it won't be. Basically, your brain will do a subtraction, so you only hear one sound. And what's going to happen is that process of doing that subtraction, scientists call it entrainment. They call it entraining the brain. And what seems to happen when we do that mental subtraction, you won't even realize you're doing it. You don't have to put any effort. There's no math. Your brain does it all for you. It's all happening at the unconscious level. And what will end up happening is your parts of your certain neurons will begin to fire in synchrony with whatever that wavelength is. And so 40 hertz, the reason I'm suggesting 40 for focus is that seems to be the brain waves that are associated with deep focus. So you can find binaural hertz for going to sleep, and those will be binaural hertz around 5 hertz. That's going to make you sleepy. But 40 hertz will give you focus. And they're still trying to figure out the science of it. I've given a glossy explanation of it. We're still trying to figure out why it works. But it is so powerful. When I was doing the early research for this book, I was skeptical. And on days when I was having trouble focusing, I would bring this up. And within 2 or 3 minutes, I would be so focused, I wouldn't hear the sounds anymore. I would be deep into whatever task. So you put it on and you start whatever task you're trying to do. So it wouldn't work for a conversation, obviously, because you've got the headphones on and you're listening to a sound. But it works really well for a task on your computer or a task where you need to be writing on paper or planning out a project. It will get you deep into the focused mode. So if you're having trouble, you've given yourself that gift of I'm going to single task and you're having trouble getting into it, try binaural beats. I actually leave headphones directly behind my monitor now for this very purpose because I find it so effective. So I tell myself if 20 minutes have gone by and I haven't gotten into the task I need to be doing, if I'm checking, we're looking for a house and I'm still checking real estate websites, so like, okay, it's time to do binaural beats. And it zips up my focus every time. So that's something I highly recommend for folks.
Can they do it through speakers, or does it have to be headphones?
The research shows that, well, so it doesn't work with speakers because
Okay.
you need to have, you need each ear to be getting a different signal, and speakers would be ambient. they've actually, some researchers have tried it thinking, oh, well, we'll do this in a meeting room while people are working, and hopefully it will give everyone in the meeting room more focus. And if anything, it creates distraction. It doesn't help. So it seems to it's either neutral or backfiring. So unfortunately, you do need headphones. This is a you can this would be a cost, but you don't have to have fancy headphones. They don't have to be noise canceling. They could be pretty simple.
Awesome. That was a great tip.
Mm.
A lot of us, yeah, feel more productive when we are juggling habits or tasks. What is it in the brain that's happening that's creating that illusion?
I think part of it, it's a good question. Like why do we feel like we're getting more done? I think part of it could actually be that sympathetic nervous system response where we're feeling energized, our heart starts beating faster, we get a little more excited. So that sense of excitement might be part of what makes us, and again, there's a mood boost. So those two things might give you this sense of this is a good thing, right? I'm excited about this. But actually, it's your body being a bit stressed out by it. It's not, and this is a tricky issue. I think one of the light bulb moments for me was understanding that something that can be stressful can, you're anxious about a talk you have to give, let's say. um, you can reinterpret that as excitement. Your body's having the same physiological reaction. Your heart's beating hard, your palms are getting sweaty, the same way you would if you were really excited about something that was about to happen. And so we can misinterpret our body signals, or we can reinterpret our body signals. And I think one of the things we do is when we're multitasking, I don't know about you, but sometimes when we finally close our laptop and we focus on the person in front of us, we're like, okay, all right, what were you saying? There's this sense of like, oh, relief, right? And so I think we should pay attention to that. Our body is knowing like, oh, now I get to relax, right? And that's the kind of person we want to be more often.
That's interesting that you made the connection with excitement and anxiety.
Mhm.
It's, yeah, one of the insights I have had multiple times actually during meditation, that if I release the resistance to anxiety,
Yes.
like the differentiation between excitement and anxiety is, well, none, or they're the same. They're very, very, very similar
Oh, how
at the
powerful that
very
you've
least.
experienced that. Well, in the way that I as a meditator, I haven't had that level of enlightenment. So good job, you. But the way that I capitalize on this, do a lot of public speaking, and a very useful tool for myself is the night before a talk. Even though I give lots of talks, I'll still be nervous the night before. And when I can't fall asleep because I'm thinking about the talk, I've learned to tell myself, you're excited, not anxious. You're excited, not anxious. You're excited, not anxious. They've done this in the research lab before people give presentations, and people don't believe it. They're like, I'm sorry, but I'm anxious. And they're like, nope, tell yourself you're excited. Please just tell yourself that. And what they find is speaking performance goes up. Uh, One of the really fascinating things is even though your heart's beating hard, whether you're excited or you're anxious, if you tell yourself, I'm excited, you get vasodilation. Basically, your blood vessels dilate, so your blood pressure goes down. Whereas if you say, I'm anxious, your blood vessels constrict, and so your blood pressure goes up. So your heart's beating hard either way, but you actually have lower blood pressure when you're excited. You have higher blood pressure when you're anxious. So telling yourself this can help your body have the reaction you want, which is, yes, your heart's still beating hard. Maybe you'd like that to go away, but you're telling yourself you're excited, so your body can now move into like, okay, so we're going to relax into this. It's going to be okay. This is like Christmas Eve excitement.
Love that. And I completely relate to that. I'm such a nervous public
Mhm.
speaker in particular.
Mhm.
If you were about to do a public speech and you
Mhm.
were in that kind of like moment to moment anxiety, is there anything else you would recommend that could help shift out of a state of anxiety or multitasking and being scattered?
Yes. So a couple of things. So the reframing of I'm excited, not anxious is very helpful. A second one that's very helpful in terms of cognitive reframing that research substantiates is to tell yourself, uh, this is going to help me do better. This stress that I'm feeling, my body is preparing to do excellent work. My body's having this reaction because I care very much about this presentation. If you didn't care about the presentation, you wouldn't be anxious. You wouldn't be having this reaction. My body is gearing up to do an excellent job. This is my body's way of preparing. So reframing what's happening, and I really like Lisa Feldman Barrett puts it, you're getting your butterflies to fly in formation. So the idea here is, hey, we're going to do this, and my body is telling me it matters, and I'm going to do a great job. All my resources are going towards doing a great job, and this will improve your performance by reframing it as this, instead of seeing the stress as a negative, seeing the stress as your body's gearing up for excellent performance, and that will improve your performance. Researchers find this in the lab consistently. And the third one is a demonstration that we can do of a breathing technique that can help your body get to, because if what, some people will get concerned like, oh my gosh, but my mouth is getting so dry, I'm afraid I'm going to get up there and be so parched I won't be able to speak. So there is a quick breathing technique that we can do to help calm your body down just a little bit to bring you into that optimal performance zone. Would you like me to demonstrate?
Yeah, absolutely. That
Okay.
would be amazing.
Okay, great. So and people can follow along. Again, you can do this while you're driving if you're listening to the podcast while you drive. So get yourself comfortable. So first, Josh, just if you wouldn't mind, what on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your stress levels right now? Where 10 is the most stressed you could be, and 1 would be not stressed at all.
I would say 4.5.
Okay, very nice. Okay, 4.5, good. All right, so we're going to do this breathing technique. I'll describe it first, and then we'll do it. So in the moment, I'm going to ask you to exhale all of your air. And then I'm going to ask you to inhale to a count of 5, hold to a count of 2, exhale to a count of 7. And I'll count out loud so that you can follow along and you don't have to do the counting yourself. We'll cycle through it 2 times. And as an experienced meditator, this might be very easy for you, but some people especially have trouble with that slow 5-second inhale. They'll kind of get to like 3 or 4 and be like, "Ooh, I did too much. I can't take in any more air, Therese." So just start holding your breath early. Holding your breath early longer, that's going to be fine. You'll be able to hold it a little longer. The most important part is that really slow 7-second exhale. And to help you with that, you can pretend like you're blowing on a piece of pizza or blowing out a straw. So kind of pursed lips. There you go. Good. All right.
Should we take it in through the nose or the mouth, or it doesn't matter?
Usually, the recommendation is through your nose. Yep. But
Perfect.
I think it would work through your mouth if you find that you're congested right now. Breathe through your mouth. That's just fine. I wouldn't want you to not be able to breathe in. All right.
Perfect.
Sound good? Okay.
Sounds
Exhale.
good.
Good. And like I said, I'll count out loud. So exhale all of your air and inhale 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold 2. Exhale 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Again, inhale 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold 2. Exhale 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. So using that same scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your stress levels now?
I reckon a 2.
Good. I'm glad it came
Yeah.
down. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's nice about that is you can do that right before a talk. 2 cycles. You can do more cycles. Even better if you can put your hands on your belly and really do diaphragmatic deep breathing. But I usually find a 5-second inhale is going to engage your diaphragm. It's hard to just do that up here. You usually have to get down into your belly. And you can do that in a meeting. You can do that in the presence. I've done it in front of my in-laws and they don't even know because we're having a stressful conversation. Yep. So what's beautiful about it is you can do that anytime you're feeling anxious or stressed about something that's happening or that is about to happen. And what it does is immediately you feel less stressed. And most of that's that really long, slow exhale because as you're inhaling, your heart rate speeding up and activating your sympathetic nervous system. You're exhaling, you're activating your parasympathetic nervous system, and your heart rate slows down. So if you have a longer exhale than inhale, you are activating your parasympathetic nervous system more, and you're slowing down your heart rate, and so your body is feeling relaxed. You're also activating, especially if you blow through your mouth with that we talked about, the pursed lips. You're activating your vagus nerve, um, and that sends a signal up to your brain. And you can tell your brain, like, I don't need to be stressed about this talk. I've practiced 12 times. I'm going to be fine. I know I'm going to be fine. We can sometimes not talk ourselves out of that, but our body, through the vagus nerve and through slowing our heart rate, is sending a signal to your brain like, hey, we're actually pretty relaxed down here. You can be relaxed up there. And it sends a signal to your prefrontal cortex to be more active in controlling how you're reacting. It also reduces your activity in your amygdala, which makes you feel less threatened by what's happening, that this is not as big a deal as I'm making it out to be, because if my body's relaxed, then actually my brain can ride along. It doesn't have to be as upset or anxious. It's not as much of a threat as I originally thought. So it's a way for you to harness your body to send a signal to your brain, and it changes how you're experiencing the situation. It's so powerful. I did it just yesterday. I had a stressful experience that I found myself gearing up for, and was realizing that the reaction I was having was out of proportion to the situation. And I did 3 or 4 cycles of this, and I was like, okay, all right, I'm not down to a 1 on the stress level, but I came down from like a 6 or a 7 down to a 4. I'm like, okay, now this is the right level of stress for this moment.
Yeah, it's amazing how quick that worked. I haven't actually done that combination of breath work before.
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
what is the hold doing, and what's happening in the brain? Do we know anything about what's happening in the brain when we do that kind of breath work?
Uh, I don't, you mean the 2-second hold in the middle part?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's really interesting because like Andrew Weil has a 4-7-8 breath that he finds very effective for reducing stress. I like to do that one before bed. I find that 7-second hold seems, even though it's really a stretch in the moment, as it, and I can't fall asleep while I'm doing it. It's not like taking some sleep medication where you fall asleep while you're doing it. But as soon as it's over, my body is like just ready to go to sleep. So I don't know why the 2-second hold in the middle is useful. That's a great question. But I know that maybe it's the oxygenation of your brain that's happening there. I don't know. It's a great question.
Yeah, interesting. I imagine it is activating the parasympathetic quite strongly from a small hold. I know, yeah, I do a lot of free diving, and when we do breath hold, we have like the mammalian dive reflex will kick in. So I wonder if that hold is slightly
Yeah.
increasing CO2, and then that's activating the reflex, which then calms the body,
It
perhaps.
might be. Yeah. And yeah, you just did an episode on free diving, didn't you? Or recently you did an episode on free diving. Yeah, I haven't listened to that one yet. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure there's something about CO2 levels that's playing into that. The part that I know about is the vagus nerve, and the fact that activating you as you saturate the prefrontal cortex with more oxygen, and blood flow, uh, that allows you to think more clearly. So one of the things it also does, we're talking about reducing stress response. It also improves decision making. That's one of the things I find most fascinating about that little breathing technique, that 5-2-7 breathing. In the lab, they'll do it for 2 minutes. So we did about 30 seconds worth. So we did it twice. So to do 2 minutes worth, you would do maybe 6 times to get that many, or 8 times. And what they find is 8 cycles of that is enough to objectively improve decision making. And they believe that's because you're reducing your stress response, but also you're activating your prefrontal cortex in a way so that you get a clearer insight into what really matters to you and what the pros and cons are. So it can also be beneficial that way. And so it's kind of a twofer: reduce your stress as well as give you insights if you're having trouble making a decision. This is a technique to try to give you kind of to clear the murkiness away.
Yeah, amazing.
Mm,
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing.
sure.
For our listeners that aren't familiar with the term amygdala hijack, can you walk
Mm.
us through the neurochemical cascade that's happening during acute stress, um, and how a simple exercise like maybe box breathing might help?
It's interesting. I know that amygdala hijack is a really popular phrase right now. I'm a little reluctant to use it myself because uh, it's not the case that your amygdala is taking over your whole brain. It's that it's saying that something is very salient and we need to pay attention to it, which is the role of the amygdala. It's to say something's really important. And what what you want to be doing is saying, okay, this might be important, and I need my prefrontal cortex and higher brain regions to assess how important is it to me in this moment, given my goals, given the other information that I maybe I'm not thinking about in this moment, but if I take a moment I can recall is important in this situation. And so the idea here is that we want the amygdala to be telling us this is changed or this is important, and then for the prefrontal cortex to have the opportunity to evaluate, okay, but given what else matters to me, is do I want to make a decision based on that strong signal I'm getting from the amygdala, or do I want to make a decision based on other things that I know? So let me give you an example. Uh, let's take the example of I'm anxious about giving a talk, and um, I feel my heart rate going up, and the person who's in charge of the talk uh, turns to me and says, "Hey, Therese, you don't have to talk today if you don't want to." And my amygdala might be saying, "Oh, great, we want to get out of this," right? And but my prefrontal cortex would be saying, "You worked really hard on this, and you're still going to have to give this talk. Does that actually make sense to delay this? Because you're going to go through all of this again next week when you're up again, right? And then you'll lose sleep another night, right?" So um, uh, I think a good way to think about this is that what we want to make sure happens is that your prefrontal cortex isn't kind of powering down. I think that's the thing that people are trying to emphasize when they talk about amygdala hijack, is they're thinking we want to make sure that the prefrontal cortex doesn't get shut down. I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but you might have had a moment where you witness like a car accident or something awful happening in front of you, and it suddenly becomes you feel the urgency to act, but you suddenly don't feel like you're as clear a thinker as you might like to be, right? Part of that's because in that stressful moment, your prefrontal cortex is not as engaged as you'd like it to be, and you're going to just go to automatic, rush in. What do I need to do? But maybe not think about bigger picture things in that moment. That's adaptive, but you might also want to be able to think, okay, wait, there are already people over there helping. What can I be doing over here? Oh, actually, I should help. I should make sure people don't get closer because those EMTs need space or whatever it might be, right? Or sorry, emergency medical technicians need space for international audiences. So what I'm trying to emphasize here is that what we really want to be doing is figuring out what are the techniques to get your prefrontal cortex to be engaged in good decision making, and that breathing technique is one way you can do that. It's just my perspective on the amygdala hijack notion. I think what we really want to focus on is like okay, but how do I get my prefrontal cortex to be an equal, if not stronger, player in this game?
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. I
yeah,
love that, and it's a great way to look at it,
yeah.
frame, I think. As we start to wrap up, you talked about BDNF and neurogenesis. Yeah, could we just, for anyone that doesn't know what they are and how we can encourage neurogenesis and BDNF, could we just touch upon those?
Of course, yeah. So I go into this is an exciting part of the book for me. So BDNF stands for brain derived neurotropic factor, and it's produced in several areas of your brain. It's also produced by your body. Your muscles produce BDNF. It's produced in your blood vessels. So you can find it in the brain. You can find it in other parts of the body. What's important about BDNF, it's like Miracle Grow for the brain. I don't know if you have Miracle Grow in Australia, but Miracle Grow is a product in the United States that's just like a miracle fertilizer. And BDNF is like that in the brain. It helps create new connections. In the hippocampus, it can actually lead to neurogenesis, new neurons. Neurogenesis is new neurons. Neuroplasticity is new connections. And so you can get neuroplasticity anywhere in the brain. Neurogenesis, the main area where it happens is in the hippocampus, and that's important for memory. So that's great. We want more neurons. You want new neurons sprouting in your hippocampus to hold on to memory at any age of life. And so BDNF, you want more of that. You want your body to be producing that, especially within your brain. And they've found that one of the best ways to do this is aerobic exercise. Strength training will do it too, but not as consistently. And so if you're someone who's looking to improve your memory, a thing to be leaning into is aerobic exercise. And we've gotten to a point where we can even give a formula for this to get optimal levels of brain-derived neurotropic factor in your brain. You want to do aerobic exercise at least twice a week for about 40 minutes, at least 40 minutes. And you want that to be at about 50 to 70% of your maximum heart rate. So it wouldn't just be going for a 40-minute walk. For most of us, that wouldn't be 50 to 70% of your maximum heart rate. But it could be cycling, taking a spin class for 40 minutes. It could be playing doubles tennis. That would do it. I like to run. That's for me. Or it could be a Zumba class. There are so many different ways that you could do this. It's not just running or not just swimming, but you want to get up to, even a little bit is better than none, but 40 minutes seems to be optimal for getting that BDNF level up.
Amazing. My mum will be extremely happy that you mentioned Zumba. So thanks.
Oh my goodness. You've got to find the thing that you're going to keep doing, right? Whatever it might
Agreed.
be, find the thing.
Agreed.
And there's research around the globe showing dance, not that they've measured BDNF with dance, but they do find that people who do at least 6 months of dance classes get neurogenesis in the hippocampus. They get neuronal growth, new neurons sprouting in the hippocampus from 6 months of dance classes. So dance is a really nice one for those of you who, the list of activities is broad, but dance is a nice one because it has a social component. It has a memory component. You have to learn the steps. And then there's a physical component. You're moving around. You're getting your heart rate up.
Definitely. I think that's such a key point that you touched upon there. I spoke to a psychiatrist recently, and yeah, he said if you're feeling isolated or disconnected or anything, then take anything that you love and do it as as a social. So if you're like running and you're running on your own,
Mm-hmm.
go to a run club. It's a slightly
Yes.
different perspective on things, but I think it's an important point.
It's
Because yeah, that's a lot you can get from social connection as well, of course.
Yes. Yeah, it's a little less convenient, right, than just putting on your shoes and running out your front door. But
Yes,
but
definitely.
there's so much evidence that loneliness is bad for our brains. I mean, it's bad for our bodies, bad for our mood, but really bad for our brains.
Yeah,
It really accelerates memory loss and degeneration of the brain. So yeah, don't be lonely. Get out there and make it less convenient for yourself, but do something social. It's one of the reasons I think Zumba classes are popular. Even though you're not interacting with other people, you develop a community, right? You see those same people for your 9 a.m. class or whatever it might be. Yeah,
definitely, definitely. So as we start to wrap up, we'll jump into a quick fire round, very
sure.
quick. You can answer as short as you like or with one word, if you so please. So, what is one brain myth that you wish would disappear forever?
The people are more productive when they multitask.
Great. And what is your personal go-to brain hack when you feel unfocused or on a particularly difficult day?
I do the breathing techniques to lower stress, and I I run up and down the stairs my office is on the second floor, my home office on
I
the
love
second
that.
floor, and I will do what they call exercise snacks. I run up and down the stairs, and
Yeah.
I will be awake.
I've also started doing hourly squats. I'll do 10 jump squats on the hour, which I've found particularly
Good job.
useful. And yeah, when I was reading about your work, I was extremely happy to hear about you talk about exercise snacks.
Yes, yes. I know I consulted with one group, just briefly, quick, fun little story. I consulted with one group at where what they would do is on the hour, a chime would go off in the open workspace, and everyone was to get up for 30 seconds and do some kind of exercise. And that could be, you could hold a plank, you could march in place, and this became, at first it was a joke, but pretty soon, even when visitors would be coming to the office, they'd say, "Oh, it's time for our 30-second exercise break. Get up and move." And and people, like, it lightened the mood. But also, people then could refocus for the next hour. So I think it's, you can make it a community activity as well.
Oh, thank you so much. That was amazing. And I think it's extremely practical, which is, yeah, always what I'm looking for. I think you're an incredible science communicator, and thank you so much for everything that you're doing, and thank you for the FitMind audience. Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Likewise, Josh. I feel a lot of warmth as well as brilliance coming from you. So I'm glad to be a part of this. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to the episode. If you enjoyed it, please, if you could give us a like, a subscribe, and hit the notification bell, that would really help us out. Or just share this episode with a friend, share the course with a friend. Anything would go such a long way. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you soon.